they made it the farthest, made it to the final hostage, and clearly just shot the hostage in the head. Like, I was like, "What the hell?" And it's just like, and like, I don't know. Like, I just I
He
panicked.
choked. He choked, bro.
And it was really funny. I just like so forever like that is
That was a perfect
uh
shot to the hostage's head.
Hello and welcome to another Dead Pixel, a podcast about games, anime, entertainment, life, a little bit of everything in between. I'm your host, Joe, and with me today, the person who loves to do the Rocky Horror Picture Show every Halloween without fail as a ritual of sorts, Nick. How's it going?
It's good. It's good. I hate to break it to you, but I didn't go see Rocky Horror Picture Show this Halloween.
Oh, what a disappointment, man. I just assume it was your excuse to openly dress in drag every year. So
Well, I don't need an excuse for that in this day and age, but
I'm
yeah,
glad you own it now. That is
um,
so great. Good
yeah,
for you.
I definitely do my Queen cosplay, Freddie
I mean,
Mercury
you mean it's
cosplay.
like Tim Curry's "Sweet Transvestite" from Transsexual Transylvania. I mean, literally the groundbreaking role, and then it's like the same person who did Annie, so it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, yeah, man. Tim Curry, his voice is wild. Just that I can't think of anything to say, but anyway, that's Tim Curry, Rocky Horror Picture Show. I think I've joked about this on the podcast. I know we've joked about it off the podcast, but I've actually never seen the Rocky Horror Picture Show all the way through. Every time I've gone to see like a I don't know like an interactive viewing, I've left in right at the middle of it. That's been only two times, maybe three. But I think if I go back ever again, I'm going to keep up the tradition and just leave in the middle of it like I always do. But yeah, I kind of wish I'd gone. I didn't really work very hard to try to go see it this year. Nobody I knew was really into that. Um, I don't know. I probably should. I kind of wish I'd looked for it and tried a little harder. But yeah, Halloween at work we dressed up. I just wore my Middle Earth Hobbit cloak. That was cool. Some people dressed up as different things. There was my boss was Ted Lasso. He had like this tracksuit, and he kind of looked similar, and that worked pretty well. Somebody else was an F1 driver. This one girl was an F1 driver. Another girl was a baseball player. Another girl was a penguin. Another girl was Grogu. Um, and I think that's pretty much it. But anyway, it was a lot of fun.
I heard you say the penguin, not just penguin, and then I'm like, oh wait, no, you probably just
Sorry,
said penguin, the
no, no,
animal,
no.
not
Sorry, she
the
wasn't even
Batman
a penguin.
character.
It looked like a penguin at first, but really it was a unicorn. Now that I'm thinking about it, okay, it was just a black unicorn. Um, so yeah, with a white belly. But anyway, so people got into it a little bit this year, which was fun. Yeah. But how was your Halloween?
Yeah, it was all right. I decided to get to just about freezing here. So it started to flurry. A
Ah,
little up north, some friends, they're like, yeah, we got snow on the ground. It's like, it's so cold that we only made it down the block and came back. But because there's no kids, my buddy's daughter just got like fistfuls of candy. They're like, yeah, no one's coming. So here you go. So he's like, yeah, we just made it down the block and back. But, she made bank. I'm
like
like, that's cool.
five houses and like 50 houses worth of candy. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we made it. We made it around the block, but we also went to my wife's work where the kids got their body weight in candy. Uh,
Dang,
yeah, it was kind of funny.
that
It's
is
just like,
pretty fun.
well, thanks for contributing to my children's diabetes. Uh,
Got us started me
no,
on.
it's they had a good time, and we went ahead and visit. There's a house like a block over where it has these nice old Bettys that always do like Halloween, and they have not just candy, but they have like snacks, a full like snack tray for the adults. They're like, yeah, you want some cheese and crackers and this and that, and it was funny because last year. they're like, "Yeah, you want some, like, you want some, like, pretty much nice beer?" I'm like, "Sure." And so because of that, this year we're like, "Well, if we see them again, if they're still alive, we'll give them." We brought some alcohol just for them, and we're like, "All right." And they're like, "Hey." And then one of the ladies actually remembered our daughter's name, and we're like, "Dang." And that was actually really impressive. So yeah, we ended up chilling there for a while, and uh, my kids ended up just eating like fistful of pretzels and crackers. It was pretty funny. But yeah, then my son started handing out their candy to the other trick or treaters. Just went ahead and just helped themselves. They're like, "Here you go."
This is what we do, I guess.
Yeah, it was a good time. But a little too cold. It kind of
Yeah.
sucked on that front, but it could have been worse. So
Well, I mean, it was in the
yeah.
30s. It was in the 30s here, which is pretty wild for Texas in October. But so that was kind of cool.
Well, you must have all thought the world was ending.
I mean, yeah, like people were pretty cold. It's actually the cold doesn't bother me as much as it used to. I guess I'm better at dressing for it now. But yeah, I don't know. Usually you can't count on it being cold until after Halloween, or being not summer until after Halloween.
Well, I was gonna
Fall.
say you ended up living overseas in Asia, so both Japan and China, and those houses aren't well insulated, so you've had to adapt in one
Yeah,
form or another.
when you sleep and it's like when you go to sleep and it's like 50 in your room. Uh, yeah, that's something you kind of just have to get used to. I don't know, but yeah, it's been pretty good weather here. It's gotten warmer again though, so kind of nice
Yeah,
today actually.
well, I mean that's good for you. It's now, it's about to get worse for us,
Yeah,
but it is what it is. But no, I just remember in Japan looking up at from your futon. And just, like, taking a deep breath and then just seeing a puff of, like, smoke. I'm like, "Ah, crap, it's gonna be cold." And then you make it, like, it's just you have to work up the courage to get out from underneath the blanket. Uh,
yeah, that was always
but
hard. Oh God, I remember running into the shower from the bed and just turning on the at least the water in Japan would get really freaking hot. That was pretty much par for the course. Definitely hotter than like a regular apartment here in America. So that was nice.
I got the same water heater as I had in my apartment in Japan. Like, when I moved to this house, it's one of those tankless heaters, and I'm like, "No, I know this unit with 100%. This is what I had on my veranda." And I'm like, and I look, and I'm like, sure enough, it actually says, like, Nagoya on it. I'm like, "That's
Oh
hilarious." Okay.
wow. Oh man, what a small world.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, outside of that, it's just it was funny. I ended up falling down this YouTube. I fell down this chi-fi hole, which you may or may not be that. That's the face I expected you to make. And essentially, it's stands for the Chinese, hi-fi or high fidelity market for IEMs. And yeah, I've known about it for a while. They make really decent quality, but like fairly, cheap costing. Uh, IEMs, in-ear monitors,
Oh
and
okay.
so that's why I figured I'd give them a shot. I ended up picking up my friends some really cheap ones that were from person that I started following, called Critical, and they're from Singapore, and they have a giant, or the world's largest, um, review site for, to see like IEM reviews. And it's actually, really informative. But like I said, I did a deep dive for a couple weeks, and I finally got my new ones in, and they weren't the most expensive, but they're really solid. But it was only because uh, my old Audio Technicas are starting to fray a lot, the headband in particular. And so I'd be taking them off, and I'd be like, the velour or whatever, the fake leather is like peeling off, and I'd just having it in my hair or my shoulders and stuff. I'm like, so I have to just maybe take a scouring pad to it, because there's no way to actually replace the headband. You have to either get a replacement and then do some soldering and other stuff,
Yeah.
or just buy a zipper cover. And I'm like, it's not bad to get one of the zipper covers, but I figured I'd give these other ones a shot, and they were only like $50. But yeah, they're pretty nice. This one is like $55. But I think you'd like these. There's a $50 model that is a lot of people like for Call of Duty and such, because it has a different sound signature. But yeah, like I said,
Mm.
I just got these in a couple days ago, so I've been giving them a shot, and we'll see how it goes. I may or may not stay with them for long, but so far so good. So,
That's cool.
but yeah,
Yeah.
it's just that I just man, Chi-Fi was something I never knew existed until maybe 2 years ago. I heard about it for the first time, and then it just came into my radar again maybe a month ago, and I started doing way more research than I absolutely needed. And it's just like filling your brain with such useless knowledge. Like I don't need to know the frequency responses of anything. I don't need to learn how to read a graph, but I did. Um, Instead of
uh,
doing something useful with my time and learning something really handy, I just like, nope, now I have this pointless info. Cool.
so much useless knowledge now. Yeah, if I ever get any more headphones, I want to try to make sure that all of the padding or upholstery or whatever you want to call it is replaceable, changeable, fairly easy. Because yeah, man, that stuff goes out so quickly, and it's a mess, and it's so hard to replace. But I'm glad you found some good in-ear monitors. I haven't really looked into that market very much, but I think it's probably a cleaner look overall. I know a lot of like pretty much most YouTubers and streamers end up going to that because it's probably because it's a hassle to wear headphones, big awesome headphones for hours and hours and hours, and it kind of just looks better overall to not have cans on the side of your head. But
See,
uh,
I like the comfort of my Audio Technicas actually, but also the from there, I've also been like the appeal of going to a higher model is really, pulling at me. But I'm like, dude, the next when you start going to like we have like the Audio Technicas are cheap in the
mm,
grand scheme of things. They're not
yeah,
cheap for for
like
people like when we got them like in the 20s or whatever. But no, they are considered cheap at like 150. And then you're looking at like, well, if you want mid range, you're looking at 500. And I'm like, Christ, then
yeah,
you're looking at, it's like, oh yeah, easily over a grand. I'm like, yeah. I mean, IEMs get to that high as well, but I'm like, for everything that I've heard in the rave reviews across the board, these ones were supposed to punch, way above their weight range. So I'm like, all right, cool. For $55, that won't hurt. And if I really don't like them, I can always return them. That's why I'm giving it a shot. But they were super effective when I'm playing Alan Wake earlier this week.
oh good.
So I'll talk more about that later. But yeah, that was uh, the sound quality is really something. So
Yeah, I've thought that if I get more headphones, I'd probably try to get as I mean, if these go out for some reason, then I'd just probably replace them. But if I upgraded headphones, I'd probably try to get something in the $300 range, whatever is worth that or best for value at that point. I think Bose makes some pretty decent ones there, and Sennheiser lives around there as well. But I haven't looked in a really long time. But I would like to go to that point. I'd also kind of like to do wireless, but I also have heard. I also know that like a good headphones need a driver. So it's like if it's wireless, it doesn't really. I guess it could have a driver still. I don't know.
the driver is the actual in-ear uh, piece of the functioning equipment. So this, for example, has a single driver unit. Um, that is a whole discussion. We can talk off the air about that because it will we will we've already lost all the people, but we'll
Yeah.
lose more people.
Well, I mean, when I was researching for these, what I remember reading was, yeah, you can get, M50Xs and you can plug them into your iPhone and you'll hear, but you won't get the full benefit of them because they need a like off, like they need their own separate driver. So
You'll
that's,
need a DAC, or some people think, and like it doesn't. You'll need to properly power depending on which ones you get, and
or like a
yeah, then
powered
you get into
driver or
the
something like that.
whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you get like, planar and stuff like that, and the Sunderas are probably the price point you're looking at. Once again, this is useless knowledge I've had for years, but
Yeah.
and my wife just laughed at me because I'm like, she'll like, what are you looking at? I'm like, these pair of headphones. She's like, what's wrong with the ones you got? I'm like, nothing. But these ones are really like
But these are
they're supposed to be
sick.
really good.
Yeah.
I'm like, I haven't heard them personally, but everyone's telling me that they're a good thing. It's the late night infomercial. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need that knife set, but man, there's that like it's like, oh wait, that bicycle comes with a knife set, and it's only yeah, it's just after so long, it's like it's things start to sound like a good idea, and then you're like, no, step back, realize you're a dumbass, and then walk away.
Just fucking go to bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Uh, well, all right. Well, we usually talk about news about games and such, so why don't we do that?
Yeah. So, first up, you brought this to my attention. Modern Warfare 3 is inside Modern Warfare 2. So basically, this is coming from PC Gamer, right? Yeah. That basically, before you can launch Modern Warfare 3, you have to launch Modern Warfare 2 first. Call of Duty HQ is just a Modern Warfare 2 slash Warzone client under a new name. So there's no option to just launch Modern Warfare 3 because Modern Warfare 3 is not its own game. It's buried literally inside COD HQ as a piece of add-on content. So, yeah, that's kind of weird and crappy, I guess, or clunky. I should say clunky. Um, I think the guy said that it takes like 70 to 90 seconds to launch Modern Warfare 3. So you're talking about a minute to a minute and a half of actually before you can actually play the game, which is kind of weird. Um, but that's the way they chose to do it. Yeah, that's it for that piece of news, I
It's
guess.
to use the skeletal structure of the thing before it, and but instead of like repackaging it, it's like no, no, let's just use the existing
I mean,
setup.
it's like Activision, especially Modern Warfare, especially Call of Duty stuff. It makes millions upon million, like it's like literally $1 billion like piece of IP. You'd think that they could spend a little bit on the launcher for Modern Warfare 3. I mean, like it feels chintzy. Like you're gonna, you should make it as easy as possible to play your game. Of all companies that have all this money, you should make it as easy as possible for me to play your game. Um, so
You're
weird.
talking logically, all right,
You're right.
and
How
like
foolish am I?
and you're also talking about like a series that comes out with a new game every year, at most every other year, and it's just like, well, if they can spend that much less time working on that and just be like, all right, let's just crib off of this. It's in my opinion, they'll have to update it, right?
Yeah, they'll probably fix it,
Um,
but
and
yeah.
so they'll repackage it and then spin it off to its own thing. But I remember they did something similar, like when they first did the Warzone, right? They came out with the Warzone, and then when the following year came up, they're like, well, Warzone's still the same skeletal structure as the previous thing, but we're finally branching it off and doing our own, letting you do your own thing there. But I don't know, it's kind of hard to it's kind of hard to understand why they would do that originally. There must be, other than financially. I mean, like I said, they might have been crimped for time, and hey, it's one of those things that if they make the actual game better, then I guess it's okay. Like if they had more time to spend on making a better polished product, and they didn't have to spend as many resources doing a thing like that. But now they're gonna have to deal with people being upset about a minute and a half, or a minute to minute and a half load times. And what is this, PS4? I mean,
Yeah, I just I don't really know much about making games. I know it's hard. Um, but like I just I just don't think that they needed to have that happen. I feel like there's a way to do that with that would not break the bank. And since it's literally the launch, like you need to like the two places that you need to take the most care is the beginning of the game or getting into the game and the end of the game. And that I would count as the beginning of the game. So, that's just the way I would do it. But I'd like someone to explain it to me, like why they did it that way. Because I would just like to hear that. I think it would probably sound funny, but it maybe
just
I'd
for
be,
them to say, just go money, and then
yeah,
just walk away.
it's like
That's why.
money. It'd say like how much I would be like, well, how much money did you save doing that? Okay, But anyway, so you brought that to mention my attention. I thought it was pretty funny.
That
Also,
article just dropped a few hours ago. Yeah, so
yeah. Also, as an aside, just Modern Warfare 3 campaign can be finished in 3 to 4 hours. It's claimed. So they say Modern Warfare 2's campaign last year was around twice as long. So I mean, we kind of know they don't care about campaign stuff anymore because it doesn't make them money as much as all of the uh, cosmetics and stuff do. But I don't know. That's just kind of the state of where it's going.
yeah. I really like the reboot of Modern Warfare, Modern Warfare 2. Those were really entertaining. I had a really good time with them. I just played Modern Warfare 2 last year, and so I'm curious about the third one. It's fine that it's short, but I'm also one of the only I'm the weird person who wants to play Call of Duty for the campaign. I don't care about the online multiplayer. In fact, cut it off, break it off, and then let me pay $20 just to own the actual campaign. Because I would much rather do that than have to pay. The prices never really drop on Call of Duty because of the online stuff, and hence the reason why I'll end up renting it from the library, beating the campaign, and just putting it back because I like to play a quick action, turn my brain off, just run and shoot, and whatever crazy story, bombastic, Michael Bay action scene. I'm like, this is great. I like what it's doing. Uh, the new visuals look really good. I mean, I don't think I've ever played Modern Warfare 3. So I played the original 1 and 2, and I think I played Black Ops, and that was it. So then I kind of we were overseas, so it was a little harder to get that stuff back then. And yeah, so when they came out with the new versions, their reboots, they've all been pretty solid. But as far as 3 goes, I have no idea where the story goes. I know that they kind of ended it with the tease of no Russian, just as a credit sequence.
All right.
But they changed it up instead of the airport. It looked like an airplane. You were on an airplane. So that was which is I think an homage to the ending of Modern Warfare 1, where you end up after the credits, you actually get the Mile High Club achievement, or you're trying to get it, which is you're breaking or you're snuck onto an airplane and you're trying to take it over while it's in flight. And that was one of the hardest trophies I've ever tried to get. I didn't get it, and I was really close. And it was my friend and I spent a good couple hours just handing the controller back and forth trying to do this level. They made it the farthest, made it to the final hostage, and clearly just shot the hostage in the head. Like I was like, "What the hell?" And it's just like, and like I don't know, like I just I
You
panicked.
choked. You choked, bro.
It was really funny. I just like so forever like that is
That was a perfect
uh
shot to the hostage's head.
yeah, no hostage, no problem, right? It's like, and it was just that is if I ever want my friend to just like groan and like just sigh in disbelief, I'll bring up the Mile High Club achievement and or I'm like, "Hey, you want to play some Call of Duty?" And they'll just be like, "No."
No, that's funny.
Yes. No, but anyways, I'm sure they'll fix that soon enough. But it is ridiculous that they happen to start this off this way. But
Yeah.
yeah, what else you got for us on the news front?
A little bit of a headline. There appears that there's going to be more Silent Hill remakes. There appears to be more Silent Hill remakes in the works from Konami. Kind of just a rumor, seems like, but one of their, I think it's earnings statements mention Silent Hill remakes in the plural, so kind of makes sense. They're Silent Hill 2 remake coming out. I guess sometime next year. I don't remember when that actually is supposed to come out, but I imagine sometime next year. Um, and that's the most popular Silent Hill is the second one, so it makes sense to start there and then see how uh, how the public reacts to that, and then maybe go back and make 1 and 3. I would imagine, and maybe some of the others. There's a lot of appetite for it, but yeah. So I've kind of figured that was coming, but there's news about it, a little bit more confirmation. So thought I'd mention it.
Well, so long as they take the time to do a proper remake and they don't come out with a quote unquote like master collection like they did for Metal Gear, they should be fine. But that's the problem is like, especially with this Metal Gear situation that came out, a franchise that is way more beloved than Silent Hill, uh, and they've completely just dropped the ball on this remake. It's the first time Snake Eater has come to PC, and yet it's like it has no special PC functions. You can't like super tweak it or nothing. It's yeah, it's pretty disappointing. It's been panned like all over the internet on how lackluster this collection is. So,
Yeah, Konami is such a
uh,
weird company. Like they didn't want to make games for a long time. They're remaking Silent Hill now. They've made, some games. It's just like it's just a very strange situation for whatever is going on over there with a company with so many really beloved games. I mean, the Castlevania stuff, right? And then or was that Capcom? Didn't
um,
didn't
so
didn't Konami make a
so
bunch of Castlevania stuff?
so what happened was with the as far as the it all like they fell apart right after Kojima like left. Essentially,
Before,
it was during Metal Gear 5 is when they really started. That's when they just collapsed on themselves, and
but they
that's
hadn't
when
really
they
been
shied away from
making.
making games.
But they hadn't really been making games. I mean, that was like they were like limping across the finish line for for uh for Metal Gear Five, if I remember right. I kind of think remember that was sort of when people were pretty clear that Konami did not really want to make games anymore. I feel like it's been
But,
since
they were
before that.
making still pretty decent stuff up until that point. I mean, within relative couple years, I mean, they made the one good, Dracula or Castlevania, like, future game. I can't remember which one that was. I remember you had a good time with the first one. They made the sequel, which kind of was middling reviews. But yeah, they were starting to you can see, like, they were starting to crumble when, Metal Gear 5 came out, and then
Yeah,
afterwards, they're like, "We're pulling back from the system," and that's when they were secretly, like, shifting people and, moving people from gaming to, like, other bullcrap positions. Then they're like, "Yeah, we're only doing pachinko stuff now," and
yeah, the
it's like
pachinko.
they started coming back just recently, and they've done some neat things, but at the same time, it's just because they did they've greenlit the Ninja Turtles game or like that came out, I think, or at least the Cowabunga collection, and they've done some neat like other add-ons, but all I can think of is there must be like the old guard who's like just done with games, and then there must be like a few people who are like one or two people fighting for like the indies essentially. And as far as touching any of their legacy stuff, uh, that like the old guard is like, no, you can't do that. That is that is ours. Over our dead bodies essentially. So we just need the old guard to die, and then the new guard to hopefully steer the company in the right direction.
Yeah, I kind of I kind of think that the gambling, the pachinko stuff is kind of going to rule the day because that probably makes more money for a cheaper upfront cost. Games are kind of a bit more of a risky business. So I don't know, but anyway, that kind of is it's kind of an offshoot there. Silent Hill remakes. The Silent Hill 2, it looked pretty good back when we saw it a few months ago. I just hope that ends up being okay, and then maybe we'll get some more. Um, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah, one can hope, man. All right, what else we got?
This is kind of weird. So back around the time that Daredevil, that first Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck came out, they made a game for PlayStation 2. Um, yeah, 2003 PlayStation 2 Daredevil game was in development by 5,000 Foot Studios. It got canceled, but has resurfaced with a playable build, with a new playable build. It looks like somebody close to the studio. This is coming from Kotaku, by the way. Somebody close to the studio at the time, I guess, basically leaked it. Um, it didn't. The Kotaku article didn't make it sound like it was really leaked. Kind of more like it was more like it was a part of games preservation project that it was
That's what
given
it
to.
sounds like either people officially got like legitimacy for it, or it could be simply some guys being like, well, if I put this out in the ether, the gamers are going to snatch it up, and at least my hard work won't get go
Total waste.
literally down the toilet. So
Yeah.
uh,
So I watched a little bit of a video of gameplay. Looks like a PS2 game. Looks like a not a great PS2 game. So yeah, but it's kind of just a little cool thing that okay, that existed, and was playable and kind of had a bit of a point to it. And cool. Glad that that we have it in say in saved somewhere now because there's a lot of games that are pretty good that kind of lost to time, or at least maybe not good, but like interesting that are lost to time. I know Jeff Gershman used to talk about that sometimes on Giant Bomb. Just kind of different ones like, oh, well, they don't have any playable versions of that, or they did, or like famously, like the code for a lot of games is lost. Apparently, there's some code disk for what game was it at Bethesda where somebody hid the
I don't know
source
if it was
code.
Bethesda or I've heard a couple different
I
stories about
know, but
yeah
I know there's
people.
a Bethesda. It's a
Okay.
rumor for some game at Bethesda, but at the
Yeah,
old
putting it
building.
up in the rafters essentially of their office, moving offices, and
Yeah,
then forgetting, like, not being it like, never retrieving it beforehand,
it's in
so
the ceiling tiles apparently, or it was. I'm sure that's been looked at and cleaned out, thrown away, or something. And I know it was. I don't know what game it was, but I know it was Bethesda. That was like a rumor that had happened. So yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah. So anyway, I just hate to hear stories about games that were not saved, and maybe we don't have the source code for Daredevil, but it's always nice to hear about games being preserved, the art of them.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, you have that with even with nowadays with studios, film companies, making movies and stuff like that, and then just canning the whole thing. Like production's pretty much done, but we're like, no, we're just gonna shelf this, and it'll never see the light of day. And they, was it, Warner Brothers did that with some of their most recent like acquisitions. I think didn't they make like a Batgirl
Yeah,
series or a
that's
movie
I
or
had
something like
just
that?
touched on that in my mind. Yeah, the Batgirl movie is completely done and was so bad that they shelved it. So one of these days, I hope that we get to see it, not just because of the story of it, but like famously also, there's another one. I'm sure we've talked about this before. So so Back to the Future. So before they got Jeff, what's his name? It's not Jeff, is it? Who's Barney McFly? Who's the actor?
Michael J. Fox,
Michael J. Fox. I don't know why. I guess J. Anyway, Michael J. Fox.
close enough.
He was shooting Three's Company, and it was like a horrible like TV schedule. He had like zero time, and so he was like, "I'm probably not gonna be able to do Back to the Future." But they knew they wanted him for that. But they were like, "Okay, well, we have to make something with this now." So they got Eric Stoltz from Mask and a bunch of those other movies. They shot the whole movie with him as Marty McFly. So there is a version of Back to the Future without Michael J. Fox, but Eric Stoltz instead. And so they have that somewhere shelved. And then anyway, so they did a shot for shot remake, redo. They had everything ready to go already, and they did all the same stunts and everything with Michael J. Fox, and that's the movie that we have today. But I want to see. There are screenshots on the internet of the Eric Stoltz version of Back to the Future, and that is one thing that I hope I see before I die is the version of Back to the Future, just because it's so mind blowing to think of like an alternate reality where Michael J. Fox is not Marty McFly. I don't know. That's just me. But anyway, uh, I'm done with my story.
All I can think of is they made that fan movie, about the kids going to see episode 1, breaking into the Lucas Mansion to see, episode 1 before one of their friends, like, is terminal with cancer. I can't remember, it's Fanboys, I think it is, because
Okay.
they made the movie, they remade the movie actually, and they actually had really good cameos, in it and stuff like that, but yeah, at the very end, essentially, yeah, spoilers for a really old, okay movie. It was, um, but it's like, yeah, uh, they get caught trying to break into the Lucas Ranch, and they hear the story out, so they're like, okay, you you're going to die soon, so we'll let you go ahead and see this movie, pre-screen it essentially, only him. And then when they're done, that like all the friends are like, yeah, it's like, well, what if it's not good? They're all talking to themselves. They're like, what if the movie's not good because they've been waiting forever? Like they're like, and then the friends like, well, it's about the journey and this and that. Like they completely skip the fact that it's not good, but he's just like he's talking about other he obfuscates the thing. And it's just like, yeah, it's pretty funny. But that's all I can think of is just like, I want to see this before. It's just like, and that's the thing that does you in. Like so bad that you just like, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
Just bury me now.
Yeah, I'll take those. I'll take those. Dang it, I can't think. Euthanasia drugs now. Um, okay, yeah. So, yeah. So we got new Daredevil, old Daredevil prototype game. So that exists. Go play that if you're so inclined.
All right. And then you know, uh somewhat related on the Marvel MCU,
Oh,
right? You were talking about some this other piece of news?
yeah. This is sort of related to Daredevil. Marvel's a Marvel TV show going to be airing on Disney. Actually, it's going to be dropping all at once, so it's not going to be episode released week by week. We dropped all at once. Marvel's Echo is going to come out in like January 10th, 2024. And I saw a trailer for it randomly before we started recording, and I was like, dang, this actually looks pretty good. It's pretty gritty, violent. Um, anyway, so it's about Maya, who I didn't watch the Hawkeye series, but you were saying she's in the Hawkeye series. This this
Yeah, so so they did that a couple years ago now during the winter season. They had the Hawkeye miniseries, and so this one of the main antagonists is essentially Wilson Fisk or a Kingpin,
right,
and so they have her in the series because I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, because she was one of the at first antagonist, but she kind of blurred lines essentially, fighting under misconception. So I'm not sure how much they're going to rehash on that. I know it seemed like they reused one of the locations, which was like a bowling alley or something, or a warehouse of some sort, and that's what actually triggered for me. I'm like, oh, that's right, I remember that scene from Hawkeye. So I'm not sure if they're going to just like repurpose old footage, if they're going to have some overlap, because this is obviously going to be like an origin story and then brought up to, I'm assuming, like the most current MCU timeline. So I'm kind of curious how they're going to do that. Or is Hawkeye going to be a prerequisite for you to get more out of it? But they're going to have to, like at least give you a little bit. So, and plus that way, if they just splice in old footage, that saves them time and money.
yeah,
So
I'm sure
that's
they
kind of what
will.
I'm figuring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but anyway, it looks pretty good. There is talk of more Daredevil coming, so this is kind of probably to whet your appetite, maybe set up for stuff that's going to happen in Daredevil. There's some cameos of uh, Matthew Murdock and the Punisher. Apparently, that's going to be in it. But just looking at the trailer, I was kind of like started to watch it. Like, oh, this kind of looks sort of cool, and it got more. There was active killing in it, like people were being shot in the head and dying, and I was like, holy crap, that's cool. That's rare
Yeah.
for Marvel. It's usually just like bloodless violence. Um, but
It's like that X-Men 2, moment where you see Wolverine just stab some fools and you're like, "Oh, wow, that just happened. Okay, this went up a notch, didn't it?" But
yeah, or like
they
Logan,
have
like Logan definitely was like, okay, this is for real now.
well, I mean, even in X-Men 2 though, like he just jumps down and just stabs the two soldiers right in the ribs, just straight up. I'm like, "Oh, that they're murdered for sure." Um, it's like,
Yeah.
but the no, they have was it you were saying Vincent D'Onofrio? They're still using the same Kingpin, which I actually really like his role. I mean, uh, famously for me, I Gomer Pyle from Full Metal Jacket,
Yeah.
and so I remember when I discovered that, I'm like, "Oh, man, that is him." But yeah, he's all over the MCU now. I mean, they had him cameoed in Spider-Man, didn't they? So they officially, have him as one of the most crossover characters with, like, I guess, from the TV shows, from multiple different shows from different times. Because you had the original Daredevil series, which was one of the earliest Netflix shows, about MC anything Marvel related, and they actually brought that into a lot of the Disney's current stuff. And so yeah, he's like the linchpin for a lot of things, and he does a really good job of just being that imposing figure that the Kingpin is. So yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's just because if it circles around him, that gets me more interested. I mean, he's a good villain.
yeah, because Vincent D'Onofrio, he's not always a good actor, but whenever he gets up for a role, he is really, really good. He can definitely carry pretty well. So yeah. Anyway, looks good, and I'm excited for it. The only other thing that I got is BlizzCon is happening now, so there's some stuff coming out about that. I know we're not really big into Blizzard games, but they are kind of actively releasing some stuff. There's Diablo 4 expansion, Vessel of Hatred, that's been revealed. And Blizzard announces 3 new World of Warcraft expansions and Cataclysm Classic. Um, there are probably going to be a few more things maybe at the end that is going to maybe make some headlines. But just wanted to put the PSA out there that that is happening right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've kind of fallen off the face with, the last thing of Blizzard I've touched really was, I did play a little bit of Diablo, and yeah, it was fun. Just it's better than its predecessor, which is great. But and then I kind of fell off of Overwatch when they made Overwatch 2. Uh, I still have that thing updated, which is kind of a weird thing. But yeah, I have it updated. I just haven't gotten around to playing it. I'm like, yeah, eventually. Like
Yeah,
it
I
was one of
just
those like it was a multiplayer game that I didn't mind playing. And it wasn't filled with people that just were toxic.
mm,
So I mean, because speaking of toxic gaming, I mean, the international just happened, Dota, and
yeah.
that used to be really up your alley. I mean, you were lol, but you same but different.
Yeah, I was never good enough at LOL to be good at LOL, but I was definitely never good enough at LOL to be decent at Dota. Dota was the real man's game. There's no free back in Dota, um, and the prize pool for that was bigger. They always like to talk about that, but yeah, I don't know. Those games are cool, but God, they're just too much. To get to enjoy them. You have to pour hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours to be halfway decent, and it's yeah. But that so the international is going on right now, huh? Okay.
I think it just finished.
Okay.
So yeah, and then because of that, I was going to be for your intro. I was just like, yes, and the world's number one Smurfer here, Nick.
Yeah, I have like
Which
15 master level Smurf accounts.
I mean, when you said hundreds and hundreds of hours, I'm like, so you're only like 4 hours away from hitting your goal, then, right? Uh, you only need to play. What is that? You only need to do something for 10,000 hours before you become, professional, as they used to say, or something like that.
To master something, yeah, but no, you have to not. I think 10,000 hours would probably only get you. I don't know if you had a pretty good amount of talent, it'd probably only get you. You wouldn't be very good at at League or
You
Dota.
got me interested in it, but like once I realized how difficult the community was and like the lack of onboarding, I'm like, no, nope, I'm not going to deal with like
Yeah, you have
this
to go
many
do
people.
all of that yourself. You have to go find all that stuff and find YouTube videos and like do this or buy, build. There's builds and stuff online that'll at least get you started and see what your show you what theoretically should work. But then you have to start putting stuff together on your own. And I mean, people are like it can be your only game, and it's like yeah, but it's not really
There's so
dynamic
many other
enough.
things out there.
There's
But yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, that's enough about League.
Well, all right then. As far as gaming goes, you and I have been both playing the same thing, and a lot of people other have as well, and that is the Alan Wake 2. We're not going to go too much into this because we actually want to have a separate deep dive talk about this later. But we can at least give some first impressions and some just our thoughts in general. So yeah, I'll let you go first on this.
Yeah, so I was very afraid that Alan Wake 2 would not be great. I figured it'd probably be okay, but I was afraid that it was going to be either okay or meh, and that I was going to have to look you in the eye and lie to you and say that I liked it. But when I started playing Alan Wake 2, um, because I texted you and I said, hey man, there's some people saying there's a lot, because it was getting a lot of amazing reviews. I didn't read them, but I saw the scores from a lot of these outlets that are respectable, and I was like, that is pretty wild. Some of the scores I was getting, so I tempered my expectations. I was like, okay, maybe it'll be all right. And I started it up, and I'm extremely impressed with um, everything. I am extremely impressed with everything that is not the gameplay, and I am pretty impressed with everything that is the gameplay as well. But like all of the atmosphere, the story, the characters, the dialogue for the most part, there's some clunker lines in there, but but everything as far as like the narrative of the game, I am pretty blown away by. Um, and the gameplay I think is really great too. It's definitely a great a great upgrade, an amazing reimagining of the gameplay from Alan Wake One. I definitely they've definitely done a lot to tighten it up and make it more survival horror esque without being too much that way. Um, this game is I think this game is really good. I'm not going to give it a number yet, but I am pleasantly surprised and honestly pretty blown away by how good this game is.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start off with the fact that you know, fucking told you. Anyways,
Did
no,
you
it's
know it was going to
I'm
be really
glad.
good?
I had confidence in this in the company. I as much as I loved. Well, Remedy has, with the exception of Quantum Break because I never played it. But the all the other Remedy games I've always liked, and no, from Alan Wake to Control, like I had confidence that this game was going to be solid. Um, and that was just where I felt. Anyways, the one thing I'll say I'll say start out with the negatives is I actually think the combat in this game is janky. I am not a fan of this as much as the previous games, especially the previous Alan Wake. Uh, so in particular, I guess I'll start this off with I am playing on PC using mouse and keyboard. So this is there is a problem, or at least I've read about it enough on like Reddit and some other forums that people are having issues with the flashlight, and when you try to do the charge beam, that the if you're aiming down sights, and then you use it, it it kind of jerks the center of your camera focus. So like you're looking at them dead on, and then it shifts, and because you shift just for a second, by the time you get your bead back on, your blast ends, and then you have to do it again because you haven't broken through the smoke or the shade.
Yeah,
So therefore, you're dumping more batteries into the enemy than you should be. Uh, Apparently, people who are using controllers are having an easier time, and you can just hit the beam button from shooting from the hip, and that seems to be like auto locking on. Like our the aim assist is pretty genuine. Like so, yeah. I'm not really 100%. I just know that it felt really off, and it's been really frustrating. So I've actually really started being like annoyed by it. Plus, the concept of the enemies get hurt by light. So the original Alan Wake, you just had to do a steady beam, and you could do a slow burn, and then break through their shielding. This is like no, the only way you can break through their shielding is if you use a charge, like an actual piece of your flashlight. I find that really annoying. Because that was the thing is if you had enough time, you can back up or you can, juke the enemy, and especially when you have a bunch of them on, it's like it made your resources that much more, um, like limited in a certain way because you're like, well, let me group them up and then let me pop a flare, which is another thing that I have issues with because the flare doesn't it feels nowhere near as effective as it used to be.
Yeah.
Um, so because the flare made you feel like, OP at that moment, because it's like slow motion cinematic. You're like you feel like you're actually like causing mass damage kind of, and it made you feel pretty powerful and invulnerable at that moment. So it was like a good like respite. Here I find the flares to be just a kind of more of a quick item to use, like the Resident Evil games where you have like the knife. When they get grabbed, you can pop a flare, stick it in their face, and then they'll instantly be weakened, and then you can go ahead and like do damage to them immediately. But it's a little easier in this game to burn through too many batteries this way. So
Yeah.
that's my complaint for what it's worth. But once again, I've heard that people use like so. Since I know you're playing on a console, have you and you said you really like the gameplay and combat. You're not having any problems, I assume, with this?
No, the the flashlight thing does not sound completely unfamiliar. There are some times where I've been like where I've died because I sort of fumbled it, but also there are times where I was like, I don't really think I fumbled that, but it's pretty rare. I definitely haven't. I definitely haven't noticed it consistently, kind of screwing up like that. Where I was like, I know
Yeah.
I did that right, and it screwed up on me. So I think, I mean, I know there's a lot more aim assist and stuff on, the like on consoles and stuff because controllers are just so bad at aiming, but at the same time, like I don't feel like there's too much aim assist on the actual gun. The flashlight is like, yeah, I want to do that one, and so it knows to do. And I have actually shot a flashlight at the wrong guy if they're standing too close together, and that's been kind of annoying. But that's sort of a still sort of a me thing. Um, but for the
So when
most
you're
part,
using your flashlight, are you aiming down sights with your with your pistol or whatever weapon and then using the flashlight? Or are you just, more or less just, flashlight out and then just hit whatever your for you would be what, the circle button?
yeah,
Um,
yeah, no, I
yeah.
almost never aim down sights first.
Okay.
So that's just my playstyle. So maybe that's why I'm not really getting that. But my playstyle is to be careful, use the flashlight, and the flash burst if I need it, and then I mean, I'll have the gun out, but then aim down sights and start blasting. Um,
And the other problem with that I'm having is the fact that, in my opinion, compared to Alan Wake, the original is the they really made it, they emphasized the visually and, tonally, when you break through their shielding because 'cause you'd hear, the whine or the hiss of, them the darkness being burned away,
yeah,
and then they'd pop visually, and you'd hear that burst. So it's actually a little harder to determine, or if at least I swear I've had it where I've hit them dead on, and then, maybe they've been too far back. I'm not it's the combat hasn't been enough, like, it's kinda far and few between, so it's kinda hard to experiment all the time. Um, so it's just,
that
but I've hit them dead on, and it hasn't burned them away, so I'm wasting shots into them, and it's not killing them, and I'm like, they should be, like, most definitely way more injured. So that's like I said, that whole the flashlight mechanic has been a very big disappointment in my opinion. I at least feel at the very minimum, you should be able to soft burn your enemies. It takes longer, but you should still be able to do that, especially considering the fact that you can run out of battery and then what? You're pretty much SOL. You're just gonna have to run from, run and dodge to the next scene, and you're gonna lock yourself out from a lot of people. I think it's gonna be next to impossible. That and the item placements being random, so you can open up a chest and not get anything. Yeah, a
okay,
lot of
yeah,
the so a lot of it can be determined based off of how much inventory you have. So in the beginning, I checked everywhere, and then eventually I opened up a few chests where I had nothing. And then when I was going against one of the first boss, I won't spoil it, but, like, I happened to be burning a lot of flashlight, and I was having to double tap my flashlight every time because they would juke or I would move just enough, and so it wasn't the whole beam. So I'd have to do two of them, then attack, then it would reset. So I ended up using a lot of resources that way, and it was really disappointing because I felt that it wasn't a challenging fight. The fight I had was the janky control scheme.
Okay.
Now, that's the only real complaint I have about the game. Because like you mentioned before, the storytelling is awesome. The visuals, the tone, the way they decided to do a lot of the things is great. I since I've been using these, I've actually was playing with these IEMs just to have to get a good sound staging and like it's not a big it's like this isn't like the greatest, like these aren't super great headphones, but they're really nice for being able to tell directional, and it really pops. And some of those early scenes in the woods, when you're hunting down the first boss, or you're getting like a couple key flashing images on the screen,
Yeah.
and just some of the noises I get and stuff like that, I straight up jumped in my seat. Like I just went like just like completely focused. Like that took me by surprise. But a lot of it was the audio. Like it really hit. So wearing headphones is most definitely, in my opinion, the way to go. Whether it's
Okay.
doesn't matter what kind of headphones, but I think it immerses you that much with this game. And then it's also just that much more creepy when you're hearing with better quality the things that
Footsteps
the
behind you or
Taken are
something.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Um.
like I can hear a wolf in the woods. I can't see where they are, but I know they're somewhat near me or something like that. So
Yeah. How many chapters have you finished?
I'm like only like four in. So I'm just a little bit into to Wake's first story
Okay.
part.
I would. I think Wakes. I thought of Wakes as like the third or maybe it is the fourth chapter. I don't remember. But
Um, yeah, so there's 3 with Saga, then there's a couple, and then that's after the next couple chapters, that's when you're supposed to be able to switch back and forth.
yeah, so I'm at the point where you can switch back and forth now. And yeah, so I would say that not to really not to spoil it for you, just to warn you, the stuff with Alan Wake, I think you should do your best to be really, really careful if you're having trouble with the flashlight stuff, because I wasn't really
Oh, yeah,
having.
I've seen from a little I've seen so far, it's just it's all, anyways, yeah, don't wanna say too much, but I understand, and that's once again, it's the problem of whether it's I might actually switch to a controller. That's
Hmm,
uh, I'm actually curious if depending on the controller feedback. I remember the old playing it on old Alan Wake on Xbox 360, and how the rumble helped kind of also indicate like when you're burning the taken, or when it pops for like they're vulnerable, you'd feel that in the controller.
yeah.
And now I'm betting you can probably get something similar with the haptic feedback since you're playing it on PS5, the trigger pulls and everything like that. So I bet that probably feels pretty decent because I know they did that with the Alan Wake remastered for the PS5. They had the triggers, the adaptive triggers on that. So I don't know. Have you noticed anything like that, or have you just been so focused with the game you haven't been paying attention?
Well, I mean, after playing Hogwarts Legacy, I don't even notice like haptic feedback. Like that was the only game that I remembered because the resistance on those triggers was insane on Hogwarts Legacy. I guess it was pretty good on it was pretty stiff on God of War 2, but yeah, I don't really think about it. It's not enough to notice to me, which I think is more of a good thing. I probably do notice it like subconsciously, but yeah, so I couldn't really tell you. It's definitely not distracting. So that's probably the best thing I could say about it. I don't know.
All right. Yeah. So like I said, I might switch over to controls just to see if the aim assist makes it that much better. Because once again, I've read just enough people having complaints about the combat, and which is really disappointing. And there, like I said, just a few things could make that so much better. But other than that, the game hasn't disappointed in any other fashion. Really, it's the only other minor gripe is Saga aims her pistol like a 90s sheriff or something like that. She overextends her arms, she
Oh,
points her pistol out, and she just completely hunches all the way forward,
uh,
and that is not how they're taught to fire anymore. We've it's the whole reason, like, well, if you're going to clear a house and you're overextending your arms that far forward, it's easy for, in any movie you see or anything, for someone to maybe possibly hit your hands because your hands are going through the door before you are.
Yeah.
um and so
Isn't it
it's always weird to
kind of
see
like
her
this though?
lurch forward with the flashlight, and like, but she extends her arms super far. I'm like, that's not right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really weird. Or it's like, if you see a it's like if you were to see like a soldier now, or any video game character, um fire a pistol and then use a side stance where they're showing the profile, because you don't do that anymore, because uh military and police are trained to have body armor. Body armor is lacking on the ribs, the sides, so that's why you square up and look forward. That way, if anything comes at you, you hit body armor,
Yeah.
and that's why that's the proper stance now, opposed to turning to the side, and then that's but in the 90s that was very popular, and that's why all the old stuff, movies, games, everything else is always done that way, until times had changed. So
Yeah.
that's why, it was a weird thing. I just, like, every time she did it, I'm like, that's so weird that she's lurching that far forward. But I feel that it's just maybe a
Well,
cultural disconnect.
well, this
you know
game, I mean, yeah, and sometimes they do that, like you said, for aesthetic reasons. It just like the back of your mind, just if you're not familiar with that, but you're familiar with the '90s way that things worked, which I'm about to reference, then maybe they were like, well, we want it to look like that, so we want to make it look like overextension and all that stuff that's wrong, but it just has a certain look to it. What I was gonna say, like this game is extremely, in the best ways, I think, X Files, Twin Peaks. Like it is right up that alley. It's so dark and dreary, but also really beautiful at the same time. All the fog in the trees and the sunlight, kind of as the sun sets, is really creepy at certain times. It's also really peaceful and just really great atmosphere for the most part. Um, so the songs at the end of each chapter in Alan Wake One were all pretty good. Um, they were, but they were a little bit, I don't know, budget feeling to me. I guess probably back in 2010 they were like, oh, this is really cool, but or they fit the time maybe more. But anyway, but playing through and listening to the songs at the end of each of the chapters, I've been like, holy crap, this is actually a really good song. I've been like, dang, this is really, it's all been right up my alley. I'm like, dang, that's a banger, and I can't wait
Ah,
to get through the rest of the chapters so I can, because I'm not gonna go listen to the soundtrack yet, but I'm gonna get to the rest of the chapters and then probably be playing a lot of those songs on repeat. But yeah, the opening, the cold open, was freaking awesome. Not gonna spoil it obviously, but that was a pretty amazing. I like Saga. I like Alan Wake a lot more. They feel like real people probably because they're mocapped, and I mean you literally see Alan, the actor for Alan Wake, you know. So that's really cool. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
just really
it's
enjoying it.
so, and I'm enjoying all the references to Control as well. I mean,
Yeah,
they straight up blatant. Now it's just they
there's a lot.
have,
Yeah,
um, the FBC, like labeling everywhere, even on the map. You're like, there's a gate that you can't get through, and it's just this FBC, like, closed, and then you see like a little monitoring station that they are fixing at one point, and then it's like, what's an AE? What's an AWE? It's just like,
yeah.
I was like, that's an Alan Wake event. No.
Yeah, they
uh,
do a pretty good job of like making it, like putting it there, making it kind of odd, and explaining just enough that if you didn't play Control, I guess you'd kind of just blow by it and you'd be like, okay, that's kind of weird but interesting. But after having played Control, like I remember like playing through and Alan Wake, Alan Wake 2 as far as I have, and getting through some of that stuff and being like, dang, I'm really glad Joe made me play Control.
yeah, you totally get more out of it from it, and then there's all, like I said, just a lot of the referencing to the original, um, to the original Alan Wake series as well. It's been great. Everything, granted, you don't need to know any of that, but like if you know Mr. Scratch is, or if you know, just the names, Hartman, or any of that, like from it makes information stuff comes into Control from the original. Um, you have all the people missing, from the 2010. Oh, that was the one thing though. The Saga's Mind Place.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, like that was fine. I mean, like, yeah, it's a great like riff off of Sherlock Holmes, or at least that's when I first heard of Mind Palace, and
yeah.
so I was like, okay, that's fine.
I don't know why they
But
didn't
her
just call it.
profiling,
I don't know why they didn't call it Mind Palace, because calling it Mind Place
uh,
is sort of odd. But is it like copyrighted or something?
no, I think she actually says I think they actually straight up say like
Riff
my
on
mind
Mind.
place, like yeah, it's like I want to say it was. I thought it was one line like right out the beginning saying,
Yeah,
it's my take on the Mind Palace or something like that.
yeah.
Um, but it
It,
was just like her profiling skills are ridiculous, and that's the only thing I'm like, really, like you need a
yeah,
little more information before
but
you
but
like.
like
I found this.
yeah, but it's still like of all the Remedy games that I've played of Alan Wake, and Control, and then now this. Like this is definitely the best way for them to jam information into your brain. The best way, the most interesting way for them to jam boring information into your brain. Alan Wake 1, I read, I'd read through the manuscript pages and stuff like that. And it was like, okay, Control, there was so much reading in Control that I just like, I was going through it as I found it for about an hour, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. And I just stopped reading stuff because it wasn't really saying too much. And I didn't really need to read a lot of it. Some of it was interesting, but I didn't really need to read a lot of it, and so I just like blew by like almost all of it. But this little bit of like the mind place and the murder board or whatever, where she's putting together the stuff
So
is
yeah,
it's
I
still
mean, it's
that
better than
it's still that, but
yeah.
it's just enough of like put this and this together. It just gamifies it just enough, and they don't feed you too much that it makes it a little bit more interesting enough for me to like stick with it.
Yeah, I kind of wish there was more of a tangible reward for doing that, but at the same time, it's so much better than having to go back to their, their cabin or whatever, and then go to that physical board because that would just be mind numbing to have to double back. So to be able to go into her mind place, and though it's weird that it's active time, so it's like not a safe zone, so you
Uh,
can technically still get like like you have to go make sure you're in a safe spot before you do that.
yeah.
Uh, no, and like I said, that all was a unique twist and spin on everything, and I'm having fun trying to collect everything. I'm collecting all the deer heads as I come across, because if you walk up to the deer, there's a disembodied voice that tells you how many are left to find. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so
I haven't heard that.
the deer head in the mine place, it's if you go back to the where the
Oh.
hotel is, and you can find all the deer heads, you pet them. As you pet them, you go in, when you're in the mine place, you go to the deer head there and you click on it, and it'll say like 9 left. And then, like, just in an airy voice, and then I'm not sure. I'm assuming you're gonna get like probably like a mask or something is my guess at the end of it or something. You'll probably get like a Deer Fest mask or something
Yeah,
like
like a
stupid, but
cult member. Yeah, yeah. I have been petting the deer heads, but I didn't know. I figured there was probably something to do with a collection thing going on there, but I didn't. I haven't gone up to the one like actually in the mine place. Yeah, I'm about 7, almost 8 hours in, and I think I'm playing. I thought I was playing slow, but I guess I didn't really dig into like one of the areas that you did because you've played a bit more,
I'm about 5 hours in,
and you're yeah.
and yeah, so and I'm only in I just at the end of the, um, where you first get a control of Alan Wake, essentially. I'm towards the end of that spot, I'm pretty sure. So
Yeah.
that's like I said, I'm still pretty early, but there's a whole reason for me being I won't bore the group with, that, but I just say I've had some issues with getting my PC copy running.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
It's too bad.
yeah, that's but all right, enough of Alan Wake. We'll dive way more into it in probably, probably before the next podcast, or at least we'll have a special aside on that one.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
So
Yeah.
that's great. All right. Now this is where we're gonna go into what we've been watching, an anime called Pluto. So the long and the short of it is, the guy who created the classic anime Monster, or Inspector Keaton, or Master Keaton. I'm sorry, Master Keaton. Uh, he went ahead and took a an Astro Boy or Atom story and kind of made it his own. So this one's only 8 episodes, but each one is an hour long.
Yeah.
So you're getting about 3 episodes per. The first one's even longer. I think it's like an hour and 20 or something like that.
Yeah, it's long.
So it's yeah, it's most definitely a different thing. So yeah, I'm curious. What are your thoughts on this one, Nick?
Um, I enjoyed this a lot. It was on my radar whenever it first came onto Netflix, but I wasn't gonna jump up and really watch a lot of it. And then you were saying that you were pretty excited about it and you wanted to watch it. And I was like, well, okay, I already wanted to anyway, so I'll go ahead and jump on there with you. And I didn't realize that every episode was an hour. I thought that first episode was going to be long, and for some reason, I thought I read somewhere that like the third episode was only 15 minutes. That was incorrect. I don't know why I thought that, but so I was like, okay, then they'll kind of go back to. I figured the first episodes would be long, and then they'd kind of go back to something more normal or vary. Because some shows do that a little bit. They'll be like 40 minutes to an hour. That's kind of an HBO thing, but it's whatever. Um, so yeah, so I started to watch it, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. A lot of it. Um, it's a lot of anime. That's a lot of an hour of anime is a ton when you think about it. But I've got some good things to say about it. The animation itself is very good for the most part. There's a couple places where I could see where they cut some corners, but pound for pound, they're doing a ton of really good animation throughout most of every episode. Um, the story itself is really good, I thought, and then the characters are all really good too. Very very believable. Pretty, they're not always perfect. They're not the dialogue gets a little bit odd. It's in some spots, but they definitely all feel like people with their own motives and things that they're trying to accomplish. Um, so like all that's good. I did have there were some things with the writing that I was not I was not very enthused about. Sometimes they overstate things, they over explain things a little bit, um, and I kind of found that a little bit like, well, I would do that differently, but at least it was clear through a lot of that stuff. And then the only other complaint I had probably would be not enough not enough Astro Boy. Um, I thought he had some pretty good spots throughout, but and then especially at the end, obviously. But I really could have used a little bit more of him. Um,
Well, see, that's the thing though. This isn't an Astro Boy story. It's his Gazette story with in the Astro Boy universe. We just know Astro Boy as from the fact that like that's what this character is from. That's this world. You realize, you recognize some key players, doctors and so forth. So I found that all right. They did a lot of things that if I were to watch just a new anime, just if this was not Astro Boy adjacent. So because I would I would probably have bounced real quick actually.
mm,
There's there's a few key things that I just thought was I kind of would have rolled my eyes at, and it's me playing double like it's a double standard essentially. I'm giving it a pass because I grew up with Astro Boy. Um,
that's how they get you.
Osamu
Nostalgia.
Tetsuka, like they like was literally like some of the first toys I've ever had. Like I was in Korea and I had I had this double branded like belt buckle. There was a holographic belt buckle that was, or like a belt, but the buckle itself, you turned it to one side and it was Donald Duck, and then the hologram, and you turn it to the other side and it was Adam flying through the air. It's
What the
Korea,
fuck?
right?
All right.
It was like, yeah, right. This was like, but I'm pretty sure Tetsuka had some history with Disney at one point, so it's not too far fetched, but it's still really funny. I had like a one of those punching inflatable punching bags that you hit and then it pops back up.
Yeah.
Like mine was, I had an Atom one of those growing up, so yeah, I just very much near and dear to me. But at the same time, I realized like this is um, when they do the Silence of the Lambs reference, and I'm like, "Oh, you gotta be kidding me!" Like, I instantly hated it. Instantly, like I'm
Oh, with the guy stuck
with
there. Yep.
Brow 15. Oh shoot, I can't remember his name now.
159.
Um, it's a 4 digit number, like 1587 or something like that. I forget.
I have the
Or at
thing
least I
pulled
thought it
up. Brow 1589.
89. I said 87. Dang, that was
So
that was
close.
pretty close. But yes, so I'm like, that's it's like I didn't understand. I'm like, is that really necessary? Is this whole scene like I understand the purpose of this, being here. Um,
Yeah.
so I've watched this whole series and now I'm halfway through watching it again because I'm showing it to my wife
Yeah.
and I'm picking up so much more the second time through. Okay, so for what's worth, watched it the first time through and absolutely loved it. Yes, it did some things that I would normally, like I mentioned, I thought it was silly or not necessary. And I'm like, okay, it's a TV trope, it's essentially is what it is. And I'm just like, all right, fine. It's, it is what it is. But at the same time, I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt, more so because I like the creator. I like both people involved, or like the universe of Astro Boy. But I also, Monster was a great series, and Master Keaton was also really unique.
Yeah. I
But
still
yeah,
need to get to Monster. Yeah.
Monster was really awesome. If I had to boil it down to like the most minimal things, I'd say it's like if you had to say if it's like this and this, it's like the fugitive, like post Berlin, like wall essentially. So they had some stuff. It has you have to have you don't have to, but if you know more of the history around that time, though it's a lot of this stuff is like fake or it's fictional, but like you understand kind of more of what they're going for. And so there's things that they talk about that's like more or less pre-Berlin Wall and then post, and like you're seeing the effects afterwards and stuff like that. But also it's very much the fugitive. And it was a little long and it was a little hard to follow at times just because
Hmm.
it kind of but it was a long running anime too. It was like, so
Well,
overall it's good and deserves its place in history. I just think it's
a little
harder for
too
new
much.
people to come to is what I think. Yeah,
Okay.
it hasn't aged as well. Um, but their take on this was pretty great. And making you figure out, not necessarily giving you everything up front, but feel like letting it drip feed as you story went on. You learning, oh, robots have rights. Robots are literally equal rights, not just um,
Yeah.
like trying to say the AI this and that. It's just like, okay, well, you didn't have to, like uh, it was interesting. And like episode one, I like I said, I told you, I'm like, well, yeah, if you start episode two and you're happy, then you're golden. But episode one, like it's such a stark difference from the first half to the second half.
Yeah.
And having going on my second time through, I'm like, okay, like you know what, this is actually really good in a lot of ways. Despite one of the things I hate about most TV and anime is really bad about this. I'm going to show you. I'm going to go into backstories of characters and stuff for a whole episode or two episodes just to watch. Slight spoilers on this point, okay? So episode one, yeah, just to have someone die at the end. You're
Yeah.
gonna go through this whole bit. You're gonna get to know them, get to know their backstory, and then we're gonna murder them right off. Like um, that usually irritates the crap out of me. They did it in a way of in this that I was more okay with. In fact, because I thought it was more impactful, and it was such a great juxtaposition between the first half and the second half. The first half, you're seeing um, Machine working with people and accepted as a colleague, as like being held into a high esteem, essentially, and just being a part of society. while the second half you're seeing a machine that is just strictly made for war and trying to work with people, trying to serve people, and being absolutely hated, just straight up, like, just, looked down on. And it's very much two sides of a scene that you normally wouldn't be able to explain, and to have it in the same episode, looking at both sides of these, and the more or less trying to be human factor, but then bringing up all the opposition, being like, North number two trying to learn to play the piano, while the composer is just like, you can just download it, and everything's you're going to be as artificial as all my equipment over there. It's a simulated orchestra, but none of it's real. And that's like just like you, and like that's it was very impactful, I thought. So they did a lot of unique things in that, and also just the way they carried themselves from then there on was, it was pretty awesome. I don't know. I didn't know, like I said, once again, because I'm watching it for the second time, I'm reading way more into this than I like. I've got way more excited about this, but like I said, during the initial watch, I was really surprised on how good this was, and I just thoroughly like I probably thought it was if I had to give it a number, I'd say it's an 8, easy. Probably rewatching it, I'm probably saying it might be pushing to a 9 if once, you learn more about the subtle nuances. But as what an 8 means to me is it's a recommendation. It's something that I would most definitely be like, "Hey, if you like anything along these genres, most definitely give it a watch." It's I usually like a 7, I would just be like, "Yeah, that's it's good, go ahead," like, most definitely, but I wouldn't go out of my way to tell my friends to be like, "Dude, you should give this a shot, you should watch this." But this is most definitely something I'm like, "Hey, if any of these things sound good to you, then for sure, give it a shot and try to watch it because this is, I think it's one of those that is gonna be around and talked about for a much longer time."
Yeah, I think it will be talked about quite a bit for a long time. It's a very patient show. You can kind of take that in a bad way a little bit, but for the most part, like most anime, it just they try to just ram like way too much stuff into 20 minutes. And this show, I can see why they wanted to do it. Why they wanted to make each episode an hour, which is man, that's a lot of money poured into a show for one season. Because that's basically you're basically making a 22, 24 episode um, season with an hour episodes and 8 of them. So that's kind of the old school way, which takes like 2 years now for a lot of studios to actually get through that much anime. Sometimes more depending on the series. But yeah, so all that stuff is pretty impressive. It's patient, um, and it's good overall. I think some of the stuff with the writing, just to me, it just doesn't hit me exactly right. So I have to rate it. I for personally I have to rate it a little bit lower. I read it about a 7, just because the animation and a lot of the world building and stuff is really really great. I did recognize the Brow 1589 scenes for what they were. The Silence of the Lambs, basically just outright stealing of that. But I liked it anyway, and I think I like Brow probably more than any other character. Spoilers. I won't say like exactly what, but like until the end, I thought some of the stuff he did at the end was like, that's a little bit too power of friendship stuff going on there. I really wanted Brow to be like, no, I'm a bad motherfucker, and I'm gonna be waiting for you. I'm just waiting for my time to get out and kill you, Astro Boy. That may happen,
Well,
but anyway.
actually, that's the thing though. Okay, now
Yeah,
that we're having this discussion, I gotta spoil it to you now. All right, so just all fucking red tape now. So yeah, Brawl probably killed himself in that last act. Um,
yeah,
so because of the fact that he states in the very beginning, he's like, "Why don't you just pull this out of my chest and like and kill me?" He says that, and so when he rips out the spear from his chest and hurls it at the you know the American AI, essentially,
Yeah.
uh, so that's the thing is you got to also realize when this was made. This was made originally in it started in '03.
Okay.
It was
I knew the
the
manga was
manga
pretty.
run
Yeah.
series.
Go ahead.
So this manga run series was from '03 to '09. And hence the reason why um the themes essentially about essentially Persia, which it's like and the prince and everything like that. It's
It's
essentially it's us.
Iraq
Yeah, it's
War.
Iraq,
Yeah.
Saddam Hussein. It's those are very much clear analogies. I mean, we went there and we didn't find anything, and yet we went to war, and we went there because of the United States of it starts with a T, I think, in this series. But anyways, it's essentially America had us go in there. We had an inspection team, couldn't find anything. We heard rumors, and so then we went to war anyways. And then you turn, lo and behold, at the end, it's like yes, and the Americans, they don't have a great superpower robot, but their AI had systematically killed, like orchestrated all this stuff to kill off all the heroes. And that was their goal. The fact that they uh so funny, interesting enough, like of course you find out, or you can deduce early on um what happened to Gazit's memories, and about like what happened, and like who was killed and all that stuff. You're like, you can kind of figure some of that stuff out for the missing memories, and then they finally blatantly say it at the end. Um but what I didn't think about is Adam goes ahead and downloads when they share memories in the very like episode the very beginning, after in episode 2, after North number 2 dies, um puts the chip in, and then when they're in the cafe, leaves, goes to the bathroom and starts crying. Before he leaves, he said, "You and your wife are going to be okay," and then goes to the bathroom and just starts crying. Or at least he goes to the bathroom crying, and then he says that you guys are going to be okay later on in the street. But that's because, and then he realized he was able to figure out those missing memories. He knew
Uh,
from at that very moment, because he has a better AI. He's a better processor essentially. So at that very moment, he already knew the whole truth. Because and then later on when he's at one point,
about Gesickt and his
his child
past.
and everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he knew all of it. Because at later on too, there's a line where he's in the it's like Dr. Tenma. He's in the car with them.
Hmm.
Uh, and he's like, they said, "Oh yeah, the only case of recorded murder was with Brow." And he goes, "Was that the only one?" Like, and like fishing. I'm like,
Hmm.
"Oh, he knows. Shoot, he totally knows the real story." And like, so
That's
that's
cool.
it's it's really interesting that like looking back, like, oh wow, okay, that does shit change the tonal shift. And but yes, it's but you got to realize the whole concept of Adam in general is his power source, the kokoro, the heart. So that's but I don't know, just with the way the story played out was really decent. The As far as humanizing everyone, I guess, despite everyone, like it was like the dialogues between shoot Pluto, not Pluto, I'm sorry. You had Hercules and what's his name with the photon energy, the long haired guy. I can't
Epsilon.
remember his name now. Epsilon. Yes. So like Epsilon, and talking about like Hercules giving him crap for not going to the war and stuff like that. And he goes, "Well, what did you take away from the war? Did you learn about humans hate and stuff like that?" It's just like their dialogue was pretty solid, I thought. And I mean, Brando, like learning Brando's history, and then
Mm.
having Brando just want revenge for not North number 2, the first one who died, which was Mont Blanc.
Mont Blanc.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so like because him and Mont Blanc were friends, and like it was, but they're all machines, but they all don't they're all like the seven strongest, but they don't, not all of them have met each other, which was also a unique thing. Like, yeah, I know of you, but I don't actually know you.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
so it was just, so it's just, Yeah, like I said, I was really impressed with how they did things, and but yeah, when they show Brando going into his Pancratian suit and he rip off his head and rip out his heart violently through his shirt, and I'm like, wow, that is a very vivid like image of how they's like, I'm just going to transfer myself into a giant machine, um, stuff like that. It was I don't know, they that and when they had I'm sorry, no, I said Adam was talking to Tenma. That I wrong doctor. Professor
Ochanomizu.
Mizu. Yeah.
Tea
Sorry,
water.
Tenma.
It translates
Yeah,
to tea water. I was
yeah.
they were saying that because I was watching the English version and they were saying Ocha no Mizu, and I was like, that's tea water. Okay, and I mean, I don't know. So that caught my ear, and that's how I remember it. Anyway, go
No,
ahead.
but no, Doctor Tenma I'm like I'm listening to his voice. I'm like, wait a minute,
Yep,
I know you.
yep,
And I'm like, you're flipping Keith David. And I had to look him up and
yep.
IMDb didn't have him. And I'm like, what? And I looked it up. I'm sure enough. I'm like, man, and the more I listened to him, I'm like, man, did they typecast you? Like, this is perfect. They made like he looks the mold. I'm like, and it just everything was like that is a really awesome casting right there. I loved it. Um, it was funny because the first voice work I've ever heard him do is the Arbiter from Halo. So like yeah, Halo 2. He's the
Yeah, that's what I
Arbiter.
was thinking. I
Uh,
couldn't remember who he was in Halo, but yes, I knew that he was in Halo.
yeah, it's just but no, it's I just like I said, I just thought it was then I'm watching the as he's animating and as he's lying, I'm like I can see his face
I
as
know.
he's like
It's
talking.
to me, I mean, I love his voice, but it's so recognizable that I couldn't really looked at Dr. Tenma and not see Keith David. I was
But
just kind of
I also
imagining it.
thought they had enough striking resemblance, and I'm like,
I
I
guess
think
so.
that they probably also altered. I mean, it is true though. They keep the original mold, but they are adapting faces a little bit because granted they don't have um like Ochanomizu does not have the comically large nose he does in the original kids cartoon,
Oh yeah.
stuff like that. But it's very much, but it's very identifiable. You can tell. Like I actually like their imagination of Adam's bedhead. You know, because
Yeah.
he always has the flare in his hair, but it's all one solid like metal like robot piece.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just but I'm like what, having that same style but having it like more of like a bedhead thing like that worked pretty well. And oh, and so once again, the story was like the way they spun it and the way it came out to light, trying to figure out, all right, like the it's like can't tell between with the main professor, the enemy, how he has two different personas essentially, but and it's the a machine so perfect that it can lie, it's confused itself because
Can light
it believes
itself.
its own lie,
Yeah.
so and therefore no one else can tell whether it's human or not. And then they even said even Gazit said, like, I couldn't tell if you were human or not, but just now you told a lie, and that's when I knew you were human, or
Yeah.
whatever. And like when they're at the bazaar or the cafe there, and so that's like, but then turns out Gazit was wrong. So that, and there was a reference in episode one, the North number two, when he's with the composer, he ends up the guy's telling his backstory, and he's just like, yeah, I had my eyesight went out. A doctor came to me, and it wasn't until my second watch, and you see the doctor come in, and you see a trench coat, and I'm like, or like a cloak, and I'm like, no. Oh, yeah, yep, you're Blackjack, uh, which is
Mm.
another one of, um, another creation from the same it's the same, like so I was like, "Oh, that's great." They hit a Blackjack reference, and because they even go out of the way saying he was an unlicensed doctor, it costs a lot of money, blah, 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 like, "Oh, that's great." I love how they just threw that little Easter egg there, but I didn't catch that my first time through. And so I'm still watching the rest of the series again, and it's granted, yes, the ending. Adam is Adam. and
Yeah.
friendship power rules. And there is that, but at the same time, you got to realize that they've finally through the heroes sacrificing themselves, well, Epsilon essentially, and before Epsilon, so like Zeke and stuff, like they kind of connected with Pluto slash um the AI, the main AI that's running him, the one, and I'm drawing a blank on his name now. But
Abula
yeah, so that uh,
was the dad,
yeah,
right? The son
uh,
was start with an S, right?
um, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, and I don't. Let me look quick look. Yeah, I can't remember the son's name, but yeah, they end up finding. Like I said, with him, it's connecting to the person inside, essentially, right? Um, but it was, it was one of those things that's like, yeah, I'm surprised that they killed off everyone that they killed off. I'm surprised that they straight up buried Adam like like midway through. You're like,
Oh
was
yeah.
not expecting that. It's just like, okay, it's just very bold, I guess is the best way to put it. And then of course, um but yeah, even mentioning how like Adam mentions Brow being able to having a perfect AI and then still being committing murder and still being like maybe he's the most human of us all. It's just like, yeah, that's essentially, you
So
know, uh
so
the
speaking of
yep.
bro, sorry. I just noticed that I don't know if you know this guy, but there's a guy. He's a pretty prolific voice actor, and he also has a channel on YouTube that's pretty funny. But his name's Sungwon Cho, and I just noticed that he did the voice of Brow, and I was like, oh okay, that's kind of cool. But anyway, he has a pretty funny presence on YouTube as well. But anyway,
Okay.
so you're
Yeah, I'm
saying,
not familiar with them. Yeah, so it's just no, it's just that Osamu Tezuka, the creator of Astro Boy, uh so Blackjack, you can kind of you see the influence of just a lot of the storytelling, because there was other stories, I believe, created Kakaider, I think it was, Android Kakaider, which is a essentially more or less a, a machine's a machine that doesn't realize it's a machine until it does, and then
mhm.
the whole self conflict of am I alive, what makes me human, those kind of themes, and that's a very common topic. It's just, and it's very been able to do steampunk, or not steampunk, but like uh the
Yeah, it's not.
dystopian, but like you're talking about in an animated setting from way back in the 70s, 80s,
Oh
so
yeah,
like you're talking about old stuff that came around a long time ago. um Granted, because of how old it was, things like Kakaider didn't get animated till like late 90s, early 2000s. I think it was early 2000s.
yeah,
um
yeah. A lot of that.
so
Are you talking about more like cyberpunk, not
yeah,
steampunk?
cyberpunk. Yeah, I said steampunk, and then I said no, not that
Okay,
wasn't right, but yeah.
but
So like
yeah,
the kind of,
you're right. Like the
yeah.
cyberpunk, I know that. Was it that game slash that board game slash book called Cyberpunk? That was the beginning of that. I think sometime in the late '70s, early '80s, or something like that was like the very beginning of that kind of genre. Um, and yeah, so before anything before that is the idea is sort of there, but it's not really materialized in the way that we think about it now. A lot of that kind of that solidification, I'll say, of cyberpunk as a genre didn't really come about until the '90s with like Johnny Mnemonic. Well, with a
Well, see,
little
that's
bit
the thing, is
with
it's all that's all Gibson though, and Gibson was in the 80s. Gibson made Neuromancer, which was,
Romancer, yeah,
and
Blade
the
Runner, stuff like that. Yeah,
yeah, Android Dream of Electric Sheep, all that stuff. So that was all Gibson. So I mean, the coining the term cyberpunk wasn't until later, but all that stuff was already there. And the foundation was, for quite some time.
like
But yeah,
I mean, like the ones you're talking about, like Neuromancer, for sure. Yeah, that's a big opener. But like, there's a lot of things in Blade Runner that there's a lot of pieces of cyberpunk that are in Blade Runner. But I feel like if you were gonna make a truly cyberpunk thing, not that you have to do that, but like if you're going to make a capital C cyberpunk thing, then it would have a lot of the elements of Blade Runner, but it would have to have a lot of elements of the Matrix and Johnny Mnemonic and Ghost in the Shell and stuff like that as well.
Yep.
Um, anyway, that's kind of
So
just
that's
me thinking out loud.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's that's where like things. One of the actually great scenes in Pluto was when you meet the essentially the neo-Nazi or whatever the android
Na-
like
named Adolf, like
yep, a little on the nose.
yeah, a little
And it was
bit.
just like, but when he's leaving his home, and him and the dude are like saying "death to the machines" or
Yeah,
whatever. And then it zooms out, and it's just his nice little country hill cul-de-sac on a floating like umbrella of a giant pillar of city,
yeah,
and it's just like that's a great. And then you all in the back is all just like city land, like high rises and stuff like that, very mechanical. But his little plateau was all green hills and like trees and houses. And I'm like, yeah, that must be expensive as get out to live there.
yeah. That's old money right there. That
Yeah,
is
right.
old money.
So there was just no but like I said, a lot of that the original stuff was the concept of machine wanting to be man. And yeah, I mean that's a cyberpunk theme for and a lot of anime too.
Yeah.
What
What
classifies this and that.
what
So
makes like I'm not human, so what makes but I feel human. What makes a human a human?
if I
Um,
download your memories 100% and I put you into an iPod, and you can process yourself like you can think like the same way you are, and you can still like and hate the same things. Uh, does that iPod make you? Is that your soul, or is it a like art? It's like yeah, what all that stuff. It's very much like I said. They bring it in. They question that stuff without actually necessarily going too over the top in it, but they do express the feelings, and at the same time being like, Hercules is like, I don't like, it's like that's above me. I'm just a machine for war, and it's just like he owns what he is. Uh, but it's funny because they all say robot. They don't say machines. They say robot,
I
and it's
know.
just like that's
I
uh
because it's Japanese, and robot is not. I don't think it's a Japanese word. Um, they can kind of use that, and it sounds different, I guess, enough to them. I know it's not totally a different word, but I know they use it in passing and a lot of other stuff. But I kind of wish they had like for Blade Runner, they don't call them robots or even cyborgs. They call them like synthetics or something, right? So that's a very different
that or
outside
replicants. Yeah,
replicants. Yeah, that's it, like replicants. Something else uses synthetics, but
that would be aliens.
okay, yeah, yeah. Aliens uses that word. So calling them, and I know there's only so many words you can use for basically robot, but calling them something like that, um, I don't know. Somehow that is better than just referring to them as like robot, because robot has such a connotation of like just a unthinking machine. For us, I guess.
Well, that's the thing is you also got to realize the original art style and all the concepts are like the retro futurism. So
Yeah,
like what the 50s thought the future would be. So it's like shining cities and the bullet trains that look all like shiny stainless steel metal, and there's like the Jetsons future, right?
yeah,
In fact, actually, that was the the wife that because it visits in the very beginning. My wife was like, it's like she reminds me of Rosie from the Jetsons,
yeah,
because she has that maid look. She's very much an old looking robot, and she talks about how she's an older model and she might not understand the processes of stuff. But I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't really think of that, but that yeah, they most definitely have it. And they don't, at that point you don't know that because it's an actual like, or you do now, but like at the very beginning they hide the fact that because it's a robot, and then you find out that you don't realize that he's one of the seven most powerful, because when
mm,
he meets Brow says, one like there's only how many are left? There's only present company included. There's only six or five. I can't remember at that point who all died. I think North hadn't died yet, so he's like there's six left,
yeah,
present company included. And so you can think it's or you can think it's Brow because Brow's a machine that was capable of murder. um,
Yeah.
and he is still kept alive for reasons, like, so yeah, that
Huh.
was that was an interesting concept, and but because of that retrofuturism, like, the term machine, like, really wasn't a thing. It was just a robot. And like when you think about
Yeah.
the original Metropolis, right? Um, that's the bringing a machine to life, or a robot to life. That's
Yeah.
that's kind of the concept, right?
I haven't
So
seen
it's
Metropolis in a long time. I don't even remember
um
what all was in that. Yeah, I mean, I understand the reasons for it. I was just kind of like, man, I wish they had named it something other than robot, but because it was just kind of, it's like a word that's a little too, I don't know, a little too common. And now I see why, because I never really thought about it, but now I see why they do that with the other movies and stuff like that. But anyway,
yeah, I mean, you got to make up your own thing, and just to make it different, but at the same time it's like, well,
but you're right.
depending on
I mean, it
you know
came first. Like it's kind of that's sort of the hard part about bringing back the earliest you know the earliest ideas
source material.
for yeah, the earliest source material for basically a whole genre. Not that it's really totally cyberpunk, but I mean, as anime and manga go, Astro Boy in general is pretty early. So taking from a lot of those ideas is gonna mean um, dusting off a lot of those things. So it's just par for the course, I guess.
Yeah, and but I highly recommend anyone give this a shot if any of that sounds interesting. Granted, if you listen to all this, you've already spoiled it for yourself, so you probably already watched it. But
Sorry.
uh, yeah, sorry, not sorry. Give
Yeah,
it a watch anyways. I haven't spoiled everything for you. There's still a lot of good stuff in there.
I'll be all right.
I mean, but yeah, it was one of those things that I was pleasantly surprised. I was amazed that it came out from Netflix being like helping produce this, especially since Netflix has such a crap track record. Just utter garbage has been coming out of there. Um, so this is one of the one of the few times in a long time I feel anime wise. I'm like, wow, this was super solid. I don't think it could have probably been done any other way without like the kind of money Netflix is willing to throw around and lose. So
Yeah, this is definitely the best thing of anime that I can think of off the top of my head from Netflix. Um,
at least when it comes to quote unquote
Classic,
classic anime,
yeah.
because the only other thing I can think of is like the original, like when they were out Castlevania, that hit really hard and really good.
Mhm.
I know they came out with the new Castlevania thing that I hadn't seen. Um, so yeah, it's just but they come out with so much. If you told me Netflix was going to come out with something like this, or told me that they're coming out with this, I would have assumed they were going to do a really, really bad job of just doing that garbage CG that they love to use,
Yeah.
and I would have just, I would want nothing to do with it. Um, but it turns out they went with a really good art style, like they went true to form, and you know what? If they do more like this, they'll be solid. At least I hope it gets the recognition it deserves. Because as much as I bag on all the other stuff, I really also at the same time would like to promote when they do it right, and this is them doing it right. So
It's got a pretty close to a 9. It's got an 8.79 score from 10,000 users on my anime list. So, and I think I've seen some other stuff. I don't know what it's like on Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. Those are usually harsher. But as anime fans go, anime fans seem to like it. So, yeah.
yeah, all right. Well, you made it to the end as usual. Thanks, and we appreciate it. Granted, well excused for anyone who dipped out early.
Yeah.
And yeah, as always, Nick, thank you for doing with this with me. And what is this week's words of wisdom you can give to the folks?
Um, don't name your dog Pluto.
Yes, most definitely. Especially if you are the same species, and dog owning a dog, that's just kind of messed up. Are Goofy and Pluto, and I don't know. I always hated the concept of sentient animals and not sentient animals. It's not Narnia, okay?
Yeah. I never thought about that, but okay.
What, Mickey is a mouse who owns a dog and he's friends with a dog. One dog can talk, and he's more or less useless as a living being. And then Pluto is probably more capable as a living being, but can't talk. So yeah.
It's messed up, man.
So on that note, don't name your dog Pluto. And until next time, take it easy, guys.
Bye.